Yeah, so as title is there, like craft your own custom form control. So have any one of you aware about what is custom form control? Or anyone have created the custom form control in their projects? No? Okay, so that's fine. Um, so let me begin with the, at the starting moment. So how web application making happens, like, how we craft applications. So initially, when it comes to creating an application, what we do is, I'm just talking about the front end. So basically, based on the requirement, what we decide is, should I go for vanilla JS, or should I use a framework like Angular, Vue, or Ella, or should I use a library like React? And thereafter, we decide on one, and then we proceed ahead. Then we check, like, do we need state management for our application? So if yes, then we go for it. Otherwise, we do manage the state management using in-memory variables. Okay? And after this decision, we go for the one of the important thing, which is CSS framework. So that could be Bootstrap, Material, or the Foundation framework. And after that, we again look for form controls, like, we need date pickers. We need some kind of, text input control where we can have, email-like behavior. We can bold the text and all. So this is all. Do you think, like, this is sufficient for developing application? Yeah, some people thinks, yeah, it is. But what happens over the time is, while doing your application, you invent your own controls. So let me show you one example. So I believe this is Sasto Tickets is a best site over here for ticket booking. So if you look at here, I have to, this has a various input field. So first of all, I am just entering something like, I want to just travel from Kathmandu. Yeah. So my net is not working. Okay, I need to refresh. Yes. So Kathmandu to, suppose I want to travel to Bombay. Yeah. And then, you see this thing? This is a date picker. And do you see anything, something else than what we use in our current projects? Like, this has something called as range. And you can select only the range from today's date to the whatever, whatever date you want to return your, book your return ticket. So I can just click on this. And also I had to say, so this is a one-way trip. So if you have two-way trips, round trip, then you had to select the date where you are coming back. So this is very specific to this sastotickets.com. So similarly, while developing your application, you invent such controls and you maintain them for your own. You wouldn't find the same control in any open source library. Even though if you found it, you won't find that is suitable for your projects. So you have to make a tweak. So at the end, what we made a decision is, like, we have to create our own control. So this talk is all about how to create such controls and how we can manage this in Angular. Okay. So before I start, I want to cover a basic. Wait. Yes. So basic is forms. So I believe this is visible. This is a login form. And the first field is username, and the next field is password, then login button. So the special thing that I would like to mention about the form is, form has total 6 states. Okay? So first one is pristine. What do you mean by, the pristine meaning, the form has loaded, but you haven't touched any of the field, and you haven't edited anything. So that time we call that form as a pristine. So when we say form is a collection of what? Input controls, or any kind of control. So the same, the states are applied to each input control. So suppose I talk about username field, and if I ask you, is it pristine or not? So at the initial moment, it is pristine. Okay? But suppose if I click on a username field and I try to type something, that field gets dirty. Yes. So that when it becomes dirty, then pristine become false. Okay. So same way that applies to form as well as a input. Okay. And the third thing is valid and invalid. So the validity of field has been decided based on what validation you have applied for a field. So username and password, the basic validation is they are required fields. Okay? So if you haven't entered any username and password, and if you try to check the state of a form, you will find that it is invalid. But you fill the username and password, then you try to check the state of the form, it will be valid. And same goes for touched and untouched. So this is for devices basically. So if you want to apply any CSS based on this state, so you can use touched and untouched option. And also these states are represented as a pseudo class. So if you want to apply specific validation for pristine, you can use those pseudo class. Okay. So that is basic because my talk is all around this only. So that's why I covered that. Again, I'm just like I'm going to skip this slide. So because I have introduced myself earlier. So let's come back to the topic. So let's assume two specific and simpler requirement. Okay. We have to create a radio button group. So are you guys aware of this kind of controls? So what should happen? Like this input control should act as a single input control. And when you select something, that control value should hold one value. Suppose you select radio button 1, then it should hold radio button 1 value. And same for if you select other, then it should hold the other value. That means we are just restricting our control to only select one value. Okay? And if I ask you to build this control, and I ask you, like, don't use third-party library, how would you approach it in Angular? So, yes, so I will I will start from beginning, like, it will be a simple component, then I will make it more complex, and then how we should think about form control. That way we will go. Okay? So I have created one stack bleeds. So this is the application. So first look at the output, what it has. So this is a user profile form, and that user profile form has several fields like username, first name, last name, email. And I have created something called as form group control. So let's see how I have created that. So it should be pretty simple, correct? Like, see, what I did is I have used Angular material. So that's why you will see mat hyphen before each field, before each component. So let's see, like this is username. Okay, that is fine. Then first name, last name, email. And I was interested to build something called as this, which will be for radio group. Okay. So what I did is I just added a label, which is mat label gender, which is fine. Now we are most interested in this part. Okay. So what do you think? Like, how would you have built this control? So the basic is you should have 3 input box, and those 3 input box should have single name attribute assigned to them, so that what would happen is those 3 radio button will represent a single form control. Okay, so that's basic. So that's why what I did is, see, over here it is a div. What I want to do is I want to loop over a collection, like that can be anything, and just want to represent it in terms of radio button. So I just did something like I am doing items of items. So this items must be some array, okay? And then I want to, as I said, I want to repeat 3 radio button. So there is a radio button box. So if you look at the items array, this is pretty simple. Let me show that over here. When you select male, it should say 1, and when we select female, it should say 2. So the way we have been made it happen on the UI is simple, ng for late item. Then I said input type should be radio button, correct? Then I applied some ID, okay? Leave it, ID leave it. Then I said value. I said value because I don't want to say like item name should be set as a value when I select that control. So that's why I set a value attribute to be item.id. Same way, and I have used form control name, which is a reactive form in Angular. Okay, and also I have applied a required true validation over there. And dynamically, I'm saying like the item name would be male, female, whatever collection I'm looping in. So far so clear? Okay. So this output, this made it output as a this thing. And let's do one thing, like I will just write ng submit. You know why I wrote this? Because on form submit, it will fire ng submit event, which will be having submit callback. And just pass user profile dot value. So value holds the form value, total form object. Okay. And if I try to just, I will be writing a submit method in my component. So do I have it? No. Then I can just have it here. Suppose this will be first parameter value, and then I will be just printing like, I just want to see like, is it working or not? So I just did that. Then I started filling the form. And I say update. On update, it called submit method. And the form control name was selected value. So let me go back once again, like, are you aware of in Angular there are two kinds of form? Template driven, model driven. So we are using model driven, which is reactive form. So the way to set that model driven form is, set an object, define an object first at the beginning, form group, and then set it as in using a form builder group. Then I set it as something like this. So how you can relate is, you will find each this object property on your HTML. So if you try to search it, you will find form control name is equal to username. Similarly, form control name is first name. And for us, it will be form control name selected value. Okay? So we have successfully created very simple control, which is very specific to our user profile component. So sometimes after, what had happened is, we got a requirement where we should have a user address page. Okay? I mean, user can have his address. And address can be of two types, current and permanent. So we are getting same requirement. Like, I want to create a form group kind of control. So what I did is, I will just open the next Plunker. I made a code because I want to save a time. I only have 30 minutes. I'm going to do the last part as a live coding, so be with me. So what I did is, this is the same profile page. I have added one more page, which is address. And address page also has similar thing, like address type, current and permanent, and which should have one more field, which is what is your address. Okay. So let's look at the code of that form, that user address controller. If you are curious how I added the tab and all, so let me show you that quickly, how I did that. So if you look at this component, is it visible? So see, I had used mat tab group component, where I have a mat tab 1 as in profile, and the second as in address. And inside each tab I had, for first tab I created a separate component, CB user profile. And when there is an address, then CB user address. That's clear? Okay. And let's move on to the interested component, which is CB user address. And if you check, like you will see that I'm repeating, wait a minute, not here, here. Okay, this is clear? Okay, so see, you will find that I have wrote same content, same code once again on the different page. So is this correct as per coding principles? Like, should we replicate the code? No, we shouldn't. So what should we do? We should separate out this code into separate component. So suppose I thought about separating this code into separate component, what I should do? Like there will be two things required. See, ultimately I am going to have one label which is going to be passed dynamically. What is your label name? The next thing is what value I should repeat. So the ng for items will be passed as a input binding, okay? So let's do that now. So I have created third plunker, and where you will see exactly what we were doing before. So over here it is working fine. So let's move on to the code. And in the code you will see that I have created a separate component which name is radio group, okay? And if you look at the component HTML, see, I just kept items as an item. Then same way, I just say something like said something, and thereafter label is some label name that is repeating. Okay. Let's look at the component TS file. Okay. Let me know if you find anything confusing. I can explain better. Okay. So see, as I said, we require two inputs. So first inputs is what I should repeat, which is items, and the second is what should be the form control name. So it is going to represent some form control, so it should have some form control. So that's why I created form control manually inside my component. Okay, and that's it. And my component is ready. Like you will see that on both the tab, I have used it. So see, let's come back to the main page. If you look at the main page, I have same thing. I haven't changed anything over here. Okay. Only the thing is, after adding a radio group component, I had to add it inside. Where is it? Yeah. I had to add it inside my declarations array of my module, correct? In order to make it work. Okay. And one more thing is, if you look at the uses of it, so if you look at the user address HTML, see what I did. I just wrote CB radio group, okay? Then items, okay? Items meaning I had to repeat those item and show it multiple times. That ng4 will do that work for you. And then I said something called as selected value is equal to this weird part. You know this weird part, what it is? So what it does is, basically, it queries the form and get your particular field out of it. Because what I did inside the form was, you might have looked at it. So inside a form, I created a form group, which has two parts, which is first is address and second is selected value. And the selected value is nothing but radio form group. So I want to pass on this value form control to my directive. So that the way we do it in the reactive form is query the form. And how to query the form? Just by saying like form name dot get your form control name. And that is how we are passing. So that means we are saying that selected value should be input and its type should be form control. Okay? So let's check once again. So selected value should be input, and that should be a form control. Okay? So far so clear? So let's come back to the this thing and tell me one thing. Do you see any problem with this approach? The uses of this, the way we have used, where is it? User CB radio group. Do you see any problem? So suppose you have created this component, and like in your project there might be a multiple teams, or your organization might have multiple projects. So they could get the same requirement, correct? But the problem is they are using template-driven form. But what we did over here is we are strictly coupling with model-driven form. So like, yeah, I mean, I can tweak this solution to make it working with if and else, this model, or maybe template driven. But yeah, that is not an ideal solution. I should make a control in such a way that it should be independent of what kind of form API the user is using. So how to deal with that? So for that, let me open a code now. So this is the live part. First of all, we will go with the slide first. And so like I said, what was the need of creating custom form? What was the problem? You can't use that form control with, not form control component with the template driven form. Then applying validation dynamically can be challenging. You can do that, but it could be challenging. Like you might end up writing something else, like if and else, and then that code could be messy. And ultimately that code could not be maintainable, correct? So there is something called some API exists in Angular. That API is called as control value accessor. Okay. So let me get back to the basic. So whenever you use input field, don't you think Angular, on input you can use form control as well as you can use, I mean to say, on input you can use template driven form, and input you can use model driven form, yes? Same for text area, same for this thing. So Angular has written some directives, those are doing those jobs. And we call it as a control value accessor. Not we call it as a control value accessor, they are a separate, but they derived from the control value accessor API. So basically, for input, if you are using input and text area, Angular internally use default value accessor. This might go, I mean, jump from your head. So we are going to build such kind of value accessor in 2 minutes. So just be with me. So for checkbox, Angular has written something called a checkbox control value accessor. Similarly for other fields. Okay? So what is control value accessor API then? So basically it comprises of 4 methods. First method is write value. So write value is a method which helps you to pre-populate your form control value. So we are going to see it in a live code. The second is register on change. So register on change is a method which is going to help you to manage the state of your form control. Do you know what I mean by state? Valid, invalid, then touched, untouched, that kind of thing. So same way, on change will help you to maintain the dirty and dirty, touched, untouched, and pristine part. Touched part can be maintained by registered on touch. So we'll see how can we do that. And the remaining part is disabled. So set disabled method can help in that part. So before moving further, what we should make sure is we have to extend this API. This API uses so that our own control will belongs to this API. Like we will be having radio group control value accessor, and that will work for our own custom control. Okay? So we are going to do something like that. So for doing that, we are going to use this code. So let's get back to live coding. So let me check why gender is not working over here. Wait a minute. We have, so first thing is user profile, component, this thing. Then have we used CBP radio group items? Items is what? Should be items. And then we pass it. So over here it should be items. I said gender somehow, I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So on both the form, you can see that our form is working as expected. On both the form, we are using the old form control group, which is we are going to migrate to control value accessor. Okay. So how to do that? So for that, what you're supposed to do is you have to change this component that you know. So how to do that? So let me open this file. And first thing that we are going to add is, we are going to extend this class with control value accessor. Value accessor. And we get it from where? Forms, okay? Is it correct? Control value accessor. Okay? Okay. So as soon as I wrote this, it started yelling, like TypeScript said, you forgotten something. So let's see what it is saying. So it is saying you have forgotten some method to add. So those methods are, I will just quickly write down, write value, then what it was, like register on change, okay? And then register on touch, okay? And set disable, we will just keep it. If you know these three guys, you can maintain any form. Just keep the set disabled state. So yeah, right now we are good. Everything is good. So write value has one function, which will help you for something. So just say something over here, and we will just say console.log value from write value. Alok, sir, how many minutes I have? 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I just did something, and these two guys also written some function. So make sure, I will tell you why this guy's written function. So what happens is, whenever this component kicks in, initially, it fires three methods: register on touch and register on change and the write value. Okay? And the register on change function will get called immediately, and it has one parameter, which is a function. And again, the register on touch has the same parameter. So I will be writing down two private function on touched, and that will be blank. I had to do because I want to make TypeScript keep quiet. So that's what this function was needed. So basically what I'm doing is, I'm just saying I have on touch function and on change function. Okay? And this should have some, this should have some parameter. Change should have some parameter. Okay? And then what you can do is, this register on change functions return something which is on change. We should pick that reference and set it inside on change function. So we are going to use that after some time. And similarly for on touch. So we have created our own on touch function, which we are going to use later. And let's see what's happening in the console, because we changed many things and we haven't seen what is happening. So CBP form group is getting used as it was using before. So what was my first agenda is, I want to remove this guy. Okay? And I want to say something like this. Like what I was doing for other form controls. Form control name is equal to selected value. So it should act like other form controls. So as soon as I wrote that, I started getting an error in console. That error is no value accessor for form control with name selected value. So something is messed up. Okay? So we have to fix this error first. So for fixing this error, I displayed this slide. So basically this code is, what it is doing is, Angular has written many control value accessor for input, checkbox, selects. So we have to extend that control value accessor thing to consider our form control as well. So this is the line which will help you to do that. So let us do that. sorry, form. So I should inject this thing from core, and ng value accessor is from form control forms, Angular forms, okay, and provider from Angular core, I believe. Is it okay? Let me see. Let me say this guy as Annie for now. Radio form group component. This is this. What it is saying. Okay, so still it is giving some error. Let's see why it is. So basically, we have registered everything, but we forgot to mention this. And one more thing that we have to do is, which I forgot to mention, is you have to say that this particular form control will only act when you, you know the provider multi-value concept? No, I will tell you offline what is that. But just keep in mind, whatever provider that you have created, you haven't used it. How that can be used? Like how that can be recognized by Angular? So you have to make sure that that provider should be there inside your form control group. So as soon as I added that, the error went away. Okay? And do we see anything on the UI? Yes, we can see. But the problem right now is, if you select this value, those value won't work. Okay? So what's the thing? Like, what could be the thing? Let me refresh it once again. Let me see if right value is populating anything or not. Is there anything happening in the console or not? Let's see. So there is saying null right value. That means something is happening over here. Okay? So do one thing. From this user profile control, we can say that for the selected value, you know, this control, we can say set value to 1. So we were setting, you know, we were sending null, so that was getting passed. So we can say just null, 1. And let's see, is it getting printed on console or not? Okay, it is. So what we can do is, we can somehow assign a value to our form control from here. So we have to assign value. To do assign value to form control. And we have to take care of this. So how to do that? In Angular form control, as I said, now we want to get back to these two functions. This dot on changed and this dot on touched and on change. Okay? So as name suggests, do you think and it will do something? So basically, on change is responsible for when you select any value, it automatically intimates the form control to do that. Okay? So what you can do over here is, you can ask your form control to change the value to what? Value. Okay? So still you won't see like there is any changes that are happening on the UI. And if we check our HTML, we'll see that, we are using again a form control over here, which name is selected value. You know, when we migrated, we had this name. So explicitly, we have to make sure that from our form control, this dot selected value dot set value. Set value is a form control function where you can say value. So let's see what had happened. So this mail got populated directly. So what you did is basically, inside your form control, you have used a separate form, and you will manually manage that form state. Okay? So that way, you can see, like, one more thing that I would like to mention is, whenever any input control appears on the UI in Angular, it has multiple classes, see. and out of which, where is it? Where is ours? This one. This one, CBP form control. So you can see ng touched, untouched, ng pristine and ng valid are there. They are still there, and we don't know the reason why they are there. So those can be managed by using this two guy, register on change and register on touch. So one more thing which we supposed to do is we should write a select function that will make sure that the form value should change, and one more thing, the form state should change. So what you can do is this, you can say this dot, our form name is selected control, then value, sorry, not value, it should be set value for setting a value of your own form control which exists inside your form. And then you have to explicitly say on touched, meaning you have touched a value, okay? So if you look at the select method, I have wrote it on top of this guy. On change, I am firing it, okay? Let me verify that. Okay, yes. So I haven't written select, and then what I'm going to say is item.id. So I just want to show you that ng untouched things changed. So let it get refreshed. Yes. So see, if you look at the class applied to this guy, this form control, it have ng untouched class. When you say female, say it changed to ng touched. And if you fire on change function once again, what will happen is, see, we have touched the field, but it is still pristine. So what you have to do over here is you just have to fire inside your component. Over here, this dot on change, but on change requires a value. So that value would be value. So if you look at if you inspect the element right now, you will see that it also applied ngDirty class to your form. And this was very simple form, just for basic thing. I don't want to confuse you. I know this stuff is pretty advanced, but I just wanted to make sure you will be having good confidence on this. So see, ngDirty, it got changed to ngDirty when I changed the field. So yeah, so this was a very simple control. So likewise, you can create a multiple control which has very complexity. And yeah, I mean, if you want to see the code of this repository, it is there on my GitHub handle. So radio group is a repository name. And if you want to go ahead, you can just create and expose your library as an npm package. So you can follow these steps. I will share the slides. And also I have created ngxlib multiselect, my own library for multiselect. So I can also show up if you can visit me offline. So the takeaway is, be inspired with this concept and try to make your own form controls in your project. And take out all the common components, have your own common component library, and reuse it in other projects. So yeah, that was it.